to sit there if it's in your house.
Only the teacher sits there.
No,
Where did you get it from?
A friend of mine got it in Bangkok almost 45 years ago. And they never used it really, you know. And then he asked me if I wanted to have it. You know, I said, well, yeah, bring it over. We have a spot for it. So.
Hello, good evening, Bhante.
Good evening. Nice to see all of you.
Hi, Bhante.
Hi, Bhante.
Hello, Mr. Ganapula.
Good, thank you.
Sapa Sanipa Inward.
Anything in no?
Wadak ne?
Paradak ne. Meditate no? Ne.
Meditate no? All day.
Can you hear that sound from coming, the sound in the background, some sound? Any of you?
Yeah, like a bird chirping.
Well, that might be one sound, but there's the neighbor is mowing his lawn.
Oh.
So I'm used to it.
I was going to say that's not new.
No, but I was wondering if it was quite noticeable as you listening now.
Just a little bit.
Probably by the time we do the guided meditation, he will have stopped.
Namaste, Bhante.
Good evening, Soba. Actually, that neighbor's quite friendly. He actually offered to mow our grass.
Awesome.
Oropin.
Yes.
That copy of the book that you have, that red cover, can you look inside and see when it was printed? Or where? I think it was printed in Sri Lanka.
1997, printed in I thought it was printed in Thailand.
It might have been. It was printed in 3 or 4 different places.
Right. This is the first revised edition published by DK Printing House, Bangkok, Thailand.
Oh, the first revised edition. Okay. So that was a 97. The one I showed you was a 2017. 20 years. Difference. But the Dhamma hasn't changed since then.
You didn't.
Anicca, dukkha,
revise it
anatta, the eternal truths. It doesn't change.
Well, but don't you know better now?
Don't I know better now?
right? 10 years later.
No, you can't improve on the Buddha's teaching. You can improve on how to explain it perhaps, but not on the actual suttas in the way that the Buddha explained it to people.
How about your own understanding?
Yes, of course, that may have changed, but not too much. I mean, of the intellectual understanding. The only thing that has to improve is the sense of I, the feeling of I, me, and mine. That has to gradually fade out of the mind. That's the whole practice of Dhamma is that. And what I'm going to talk about this evening, actually, these suttas. You've been working on that slow, deep pranayama, Shobha?
Yes, Bhante, I started the practice and I hope that will lengthen my breath, hopefully. Yes.
But I don't know if you remember the way that I teach it, but you should start out with like a 4:2 breathing ratio. It take 4 seconds to breathe in, hold it for 2, take 4 seconds to breathe out, hold it for 2 seconds. Or if that's even too much, you can just do it 2 by 1 and then gradually increase it. When you can do that 5 minutes without getting tired, increase the ratio from 2 to 1, 4 to 2, 6 to 3, 8 to 4, like that. You build up over periods of weeks and months.
I'm going to mute everybody. You have to unmute
Okay.
yourself.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and start now.
You can hold on.
So for those who
Bhante, you have to unmute yourself. Bhante. We cannot hear you. You cannot unmute. No, you are not unmuted, Bhante. Okay. Bhante, can you unmute yourself? We cannot hear you. Oh, sorry. Again, one more time, Bhante. I cannot hear you, Bhante. Sorry. Yep. Very good.
Okay, we'll begin with the Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang saranang gacchami, Dhammang saranang gacchami, Sanghang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Sanghang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi Sanghang saranang gacchami. Okay, friends, welcome to this Wednesday night Sutta class. And I'm sorry that last week's Sutta class was not recorded, but anyway, this is a continuation from some of those suttas that we were covering last week. And I hope some of you are able to download the book that I had written on this subject. It's an extract of suttas, and it's out of print, unfortunately, now, but I think you can download it from that link, or you can go to my blog. Anyway, so I want to kind of pick up where I left off in the Dhamma talk and also the Sutta study from last week. And I'm going to be reading from this book because, when I was a young monk, my first year as a monk back in 1975, I had a whole Tripitaka, and I read through it, and I found all these gemstones of little similes and ways of explaining the Dhamma that, I didn't have access to before. I mean, that was before a lot of popular books were written. So I actually, I underlined and then later put together all of these quotations or extracts from the suttas to explain the Dhamma. And, it's still one of the only small little booklets, that, and I left off a lot of the repetition that you find when you're reading, the full length suttas and so on. And to find all these things, you'd have to read the whole Tripitaka to find all these different little things, but I wanted to put them, because that's what I wanted. I wrote this book because I would have liked to have had this kind of a little, book that would have been easily give an overview of the whole teaching. Anyway, so I'm going to be reading from this, and because this is a sort of some of my commentary, and then we'll go into the suttas. So in this process of mental purification, the main idea is to eradicate by wisdom the feeling of I or separation, or I, me, and mine. Along with this, the rest of the defilements and the 10 fetters will gradually fall away. When one attains stream entry, the elusive notion of I has been fully penetrated and understood, and the person sees in his own mind or her own mind and knows that there is no individual separate self in or about the body and mind in the ultimate truth. Nevertheless, relatively, there still remains a subtle remnant of I persisting in the consciousness, even of a Sotapanna, once returner and a never returner. And the Buddha described it as, this is like the smell of a flower, which neither belongs to the petals alone, nor to the stem, nor to the color alone, but which is just the smell of the total flower, regarding the 5 aggregates, form, feeling, perception, volition, and consciousness are all working, then that feeling of I is persisting in the back of the mind. Now, with progress along the final stages of the path, this subtle tendency to think I am, which is exhibited in times of sudden surprise or fear, it is gradually eradicated. This process of I purification is given in the following simile by the Buddha. So this is the quotation from the one sutta. Suppose, monks, there is a dirty, soiled cloth, and the owner gives it to the washerman, and the washerman rubs it smooth with salt, earth, or lye, or cow dung, well, they don't use that anymore, and rinses it in pure, clean water. Now, though that cloth be utterly cleansed, yet there remains about it, still lingering, the smell of salt, earth, lye, or cow dung. Just as now, when you wash something with certain detergents, the smell of the detergent, can be remain there after the washing a little bit. But then the washerman returns it to the owner, and the owner puts it up in a sweet-scented box for a period of time. Thus, that sweet smell, or that smell that hung about and was not removed, is now utterly removed. That's with the attainment of the arahantship. Even so, though an Aryan disciple has put away the 5 lower fetters, yet there remains in him a subtle remnant from among the 5 aggregate grasping groups, a subtle aroma of I consciousness, of the lurking tendency to think I am, that is still not removed from the consciousness. Later on, that person continues to live, contemplating the rise and fall, the impermanence and soullessness of the 5 aggregates of grasping, seeing clearly the rising and ceasing of them. This is with the insight knowledges. In this way, after no long time, that subtle remnant of I, that lurking tendency to think I am, which was still not removed from him, now that is completely removed, again with the attainment of the arahantship. And so I'm going to continue. Even though those who have realized the first or second or third stage of enlightenment and have the direct knowledge of Nibbana, they do not abide in the full, complete release and the happiness of having destroyed the last fetters, or destroyed all 10 fetters, as does the Arahant. This is described in this following sutta. This is a very nice little story between a few monks. The Venerable Musila, one monk, and another monk, the Venerable Savita, and 2 other monks, Venerable Narada and the Venerable Ananda. They were once dwelling together in a certain park. Now the Venerable Savita said this to the Venerable Musila. He asked him, apart, friend Musila, from belief, apart from hearsay, apart from your own inclination, apart from argument as to method, apart from reflection on and approval of an opinion, as the Venerable Musila as his very own, the knowledge that decay and death is conditioned by birth, that birth is conditioned by becoming, that becoming is conditioned by grasping, and he repeats the whole formula for the Paticca Samuppada. And then he replies, Musila replies, friend Savita, apart from belief, from inclination, and the rest, I know each of these. I see each of these, each of the 12 links of dependent origination, with the insight and knowledge. And then that monk asked him, apart from belief and so on, has the Venerable Musila as his own knowledge that the ceasing of becoming is Nibbana. And then the Musila replies and says, yes, I know this, I see this, that the ceasing of becoming is Nibbana. And so then that monk, Savita, replies, well then, Venerable Musila, you must be an arahant in whom the 10 fetters, the intoxicants, are wholly perished. And then the Venerable Musila became silent. Actually, he didn't reply because he actually was an arahant, but he didn't want to actually say that because he was very humble. And then another monk, the Narada, he realized what was going on, that Venerable Musila was an arahant, but he didn't directly tell. And so he said, Venerable Savita, why don't you ask me those questions? Because Narada was not an arahant. if you were to ask me those questions, I will answer you. And so that Venerable Savita asks the same questions. He asks them if he knows if the ceasing of decay and death is, Nibbana and all the 12 links, or even if he had seen he knows directly that the ceasing of becoming is Nibbana. And he said, even so, friend, I have well seen by right insight as it really is, that the ceasing of becoming is Nibbana. But yet I am not an Arahant, for whom the defilements are wholly perished. Because, even the Sotapanna, once returned, they have direct knowledge that the ceasing of becoming is Nibbana, but they haven't attained the full enlightenment. So the knowledge is directly seen, but the subtle fetters still remain. And then the Venerable Ananda spoke to Venerable Savita. So what do you think, Savita? What do you say about this Venerable Narada? And the Venerable Savita says, friend Ananda, I say nothing that is not lovely and good about the Venerable Narada. In the fact that he knows by direct knowledge that the ceasing of becoming, aging and death and all that is Nibbana. But he has not attained arahantship. I mean, he doesn't live fully in the realization of the, disappearance of the I consciousness, the extinction of the I consciousness. So that was just an interesting little interchange between these monks, how these monks discussed the Dhamma. Now, this is another sutta describing the 4 stages of the Enlightenment. It says, once upon a time, monks, a competent cow herd of Magadha in the last month of the rainy season, having considered the near bank of the Ganges River, having considered the further bank, when the river was kind of, flooding, he drove his cattle across to the other side at a place where there was a ford, so where the river was, calm enough for the cattle to get across. And so he drove the cattle across in this order. It says, first he drove across the bulls, who were the sires and leaders of the herd. When the bulls had safely cut across the stream, he went beyond. He drove across the sturdy bullocks, that means the younger bulls, and the young steers. When these had safely cut across, then he drove across the half-grown bull calves and the heifers. When these two had cut across and gone safely beyond, then he drove the weaker calves across. These two crossed safely and went securely beyond. And at that time there was a newborn calf, which, by following the lowing of its mother, also crossed the stream safely and stood securely on the other side, watching the torrent go by. What was the cause of their safe crossing? It was that the cow herd had considered the near bank of the river and had considered the far bank, and then drove his cattle across to the other side at a place where there was a ford. Even so, Buddhas who arise in the world from time to time, they are like the cow herd. They show the safe, sure way to cross the flood of craving, grasping, and becoming, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair, to cross the great ocean of birth and death, to arrive at the furthest shore and stand on firm ground. So he said, the Buddha continues, monks, like those bulls who were the sires and leaders of the herd, who cut safely across the river and went beyond, so are those noble disciples of the Buddha who are perfect ones, arhats, having destroyed the fetters, who have lived the holy life, laid down the burden, done what was to be done, attained the goal freed by perfect insight and profound knowledge. For these arhats, they have cut across Mara's stream, that's the delusion. They have gone safely beyond. And like the sturdy bullocks and the young steers who went across the river to the other side, are those noble disciples who, having destroyed the 5 lower fetters, are spontaneously reborn into the pure abodes and will attain final Nibbana there. He's referring to the never returners. They're not liable to return to this world, but they go to a pure abode and reach Nibbana from there. They have gone safely beyond. So like the sturdy bullocks and young steers who cut across are those disciples, excuse me, I just mentioned that. Then like the half-grown bull calves and heifers are those noble disciples who are once returners, who have destroyed the 3 lower fetters and reduced desire and aversion. They reach the state of once returning, to come back to this world only one more time to eliminate the rest of the fetters. Then like those weaker calves are those noble disciples who have destroyed the 3 lower fetters. They are stream winners, no longer liable to be reborn in states of woe. They are assured within 7 lifetimes to attain the final rest. Then like unto that newborn calf are those learning disciples and lay disciples, monks and lay disciples, and who haven't even attained stream entry yet, who are striving to gain unshakable faith. These Dhamma strivers also, with persistent, diligent practice, they will cut safely across Mara's flood, burst the 3 fetters. They will go safely beyond. So this last group probably is referring to, most of the practitioners of the path these days, who are striving to reach, at least the stream entry stage. So the self-awakened one who comprehends thoroughly, knowing the worlds, now has opened the door to the deathless, the Eightfold Path, for reaching the utter security Nibbana. Showed is the way to cut across the flood of Mara. Let there be abundant joy. Let security be reached. Here are the roots of trees and empty huts. Meditate, O monks. Now, I want to read this little poem that was also the Buddha had given in the Sutta about the liberated one. Should to one thus liberated in mind, even extraordinary, sublime, and mighty visible forms come into his field of vision, sounds into his field of hearing, odors into his range of smelling, flavors into his range of tasting, touch objects into his field of feeling, and mind objects into the field of the mind. All of these things can no longer overwhelm that person. The mind remains untouched, steadfast, unshakable, beholding the impermanency and emptiness of everything. So actually, this is the little poem. Whoso has turned to renunciation, turned to detachment of the mind, is filled with all-embracing love and freed from thirsting after conditioned life, to unobstructed sight of mind, knowing the senses' origin. His mind indeed is fully freed, who has found the stillness of his heart. He heaps up no more the deeds he did, and naught remains for him to do. Just as a big and solid rock cannot be shaken by the wind, so cannot visible forms or sounds or any other sense objects or lovely or ugly things shake any more the liberated one. Firm is his mind. He sees how all things arise just to pass away. In whom there is meditation and wisdom, he or she is near to Nibbana. Those in deep meditation, always aware on the 6 bases of contact, constantly aware and concentrated, their own Nibbana they will come to know. So it's a very nice poem to reflect on, okay? Okay, now I'm gonna read about the 2 aspects of Nibbana that I talked about in the Dhamma talk, but the Buddha is remaining, describing them in this sutta. There are, monks, 2 aspects of Nibbana. The Nibbana aspect with the 5 aggregates of existence still remaining, and the Nibbana aspect with no more aggregates remaining. What is the Nibbana aspect with the 5 aggregates remaining? There is the noble disciple, an arhat, where all the biases have faded away. He has attained the goal, cast off the fetters, and liberated through right insight. But there still remain with him until the death of that body, the 5 sense organs, through which he still experiences the various sense stimuli. Hence, what in such a noble one is the extinction of greed, hatred, and delusion? This is called the Nibbana aspect, with the 5 aggregates of existence still remaining. So the arhat has total equanimity when any of the sense objects, organs are being stimulated. It has complete equanimity and detachment from them, and so they don't bother him. What now is the Nibbana aspect with no more groups remaining? Well, basically that's the upon the death of the arhat, the 5 aggregates do not come together again in another birth. So those aggregates disband at the time of death, and they never regroup, like the unenlightened person's mind will then seek rebirth again, but not the arhat. So now I want to, this sutta describes the final death of an arhat. When the Buddha speaks of a disciple who has put an end to all the fetters, who has destroyed all craving, when such a noble one passes away at the breakup of the 5 aggregates, he does not speak of that person in terms of rebirth, saying, so-and-so is reborn in such and such a state. But he describes that disciple as one who has cut off craving, who has broken the bond by perfect comprehension of conceit, the ego. He has put an end to suffering. Now, what does the Buddha mean by that? As to rebirth, I declare it to be for what has fuel, not for what is without fuel. Just as a fire with fuel blazes up and burns, but does not blaze up and burn without fuel, even so I declare rebirth to be for a person who still has fuel, not for a person that was without fuel. And that fuel basically is greed, hatred, and delusion, and still being bound by making karma and having the fetters. And what is the fuel? At that time when being lays aside the carcass and rise up again in another body, in another existence, I declare craving and attachment to be the fuel. Indeed, craving and attachment is on that occasion the fuel. And of course, the karmic actions that come about because of that craving and attachment. And here's a nice little simile. Just as conditioned through oil and wick, the lamp burns, but after the oil and the wick of an oil lamp and the oil are all consumed by lack of further fuel, that light comes to extinction or it goes out. Even so is the ego consciousness, name and form conditioned by ignorance and craving attachment. When this fuel is utterly abandoned and cut down at the root, so too is consciousness, name and form, and so forth, cut down at the root, destroyed, no longer able to arise and find a footing in another existence. And this another little poem. Just as the destination of a blazing spark struck from an anvil, gradually fading, cannot be pointed to or known, so too in the case of those who rightly won release and cross the flood of lust that bind and reach the bliss unshaken. The destination or existence save one cannot be pointed out or known. And here I want to tell another little interesting story that's in the suttas in another place. But it's a story about one monk, a Brahmin, who prided himself on thinking that he could know where people were reborn when they died. So when somebody died, he used to tell them, bring that person's skull to me. And then that person would hold the skull up here and here, and, you know, a minute or two listening, and then say, that person has been reborn in such and such a place. Now, whether he actually knew or not, I don't know. But then one of the Buddha's disciples heard this Brahmin doing that. He wasn't a Buddhist monk. But they went and told the Buddha. So the Buddha said, ask that Brahmin to come here, and I want to ask him where this person has been reborn. So the Brahmin came to the Buddha, and the Buddha had the skull of an arahant. But he didn't tell the Brahmin that person was an arahant, but he said that, here, you listen and tell me where that person has been reborn. And again, the Brahmin was listening on this side and kind of, you know, he wasn't getting any signals, you know. And finally he said, I don't know, you know, I don't know where this person was reborn. He said, that's because that person was not reborn. That person was an arahant. Therefore, there was no telltale trace of a consciousness or anything having left that skull. Anyway, that's just another interesting side light there. And there's another a monk asking the Buddha. He asked him, what happens to the Buddha after death? And the Buddha gives him this answer. Now, what do you say, friend? Do you regard the Tathagata, or the Buddha, as being the Buddha's body as being the Buddha? And the person says, surely not, Lord. Then do you regard the Buddha as his feelings or perceptions or his mental formations or his consciousness? Surely not, Lord. Then do you regard the Tathagata as being apart from form, feeling, perception, volition, and consciousness? Surely not, Lord, he says. And he says, well then, friend, you regard the Tathagata as having no body, no feelings, no perceptions, no mental formations, and no consciousness? Surely not, Lord, he says. Then since in just this life, friend, the Tathagata is not found in truth, in reality, it is not proper to speak of him thus. The Tathagata exists after death, he does not exist after death, or he both exists and does not exist after death, or he neither exists nor does not exist after death. It is just sorrow. It is just suffering, the five aggregates of clinging, and the ceasing of sorrow that I teach, not a person that is sorrow and suffering. He just teaches that, that it's so that, you know, again, it refers to the idea that the feeling of a separate I and me is it just an illusion that's continually generating within our consciousness. It's like a parasite that arises with each moment of consciousness, the feeling of I am, but you know, it's not a permanent entity, and it's not a permanent consciousness that goes from one life to another, which we'll see in a moment. Now I want to read something from the questions from King Milinda. This comes from the Milinda Panha, and it's a book that's considered a part of the Pali Canon, but they're not discourses from the Buddha, but they're answers from an arahant to a king. And it said this king, Meander, they think he was a king from Greece at that time, and a very intellectual type of person. He heard about this arahant and wanted to ask him some questions. And so he asked this monk. This monk's name was Nagasena. The king asked Nagasena, is a man who will not be reborn aware of the fact? Yes, O king, was the reply. And how does he know it? By the cessation of all that is the cause, the proximate and remote cause of giving birth. That means the ego, craving, karma, becoming, and so on. By the cessation of that, he will know he will not be reborn. And then the king asked him to give an illustration, sir. Okay, king. Suppose a farmer had plowed and sown his corn crop and filled his granary. And then for a period of time, he should neither plow nor sow, but he would live off the stored up grain. Would the farmer be aware that his granary was not getting filled because he was just living off the stored off grain and not farming anymore to put new grain in there? So the king says, yes, he ought to know that the granary is getting low on grain. He would know that cause of the filling had ceased. Just so, O king, with the man you spoke of, by the cessation of all that is the cause for giving rebirth, he would know and be aware of having exhausted that cause. And then the king says, well explained, Nagasena. Wow, that's cool. Yeah, that's clear. And then he has another question, the king. And he said, Nagasena, is there anyone who after the death of his body is not re-individualized? And Nagasena replies, some are reborn and some are not, O king. A sinful being is reborn, a sinless pure one is not. That means basically, it means somebody who has attained arahantship is not reborn. And somebody who has not attained arahantship is reborn. And then the king asked Nagasena a personal question. Will you be re-individualized? And then Nagasena replies, if when I die, O king, I die with craving and attachment in my heart, yes. But if not so, no. And the king replies, very good, sir. But Nagasena, he who terminates his rebirth, is it by reasoning that he does so? And Nagasena's reply, both by reasoning and by wisdom. This means by intellectual understanding and reflection, but also by the direct penetrative insights. But are not reasoning and wisdom surely much the same? So the king is asking him if reasoning and wisdom are the same. And Nagasena's reply, certainly not, O king. Reasoning is one thing, wisdom is quite another. Sheep, goats, oxen, buffaloes, camels, and donkeys have reasoning. I mean, they can reason, oh, there's grass over here, this grass is finished. But wisdom they have not. Then the king says, oh, wow, yeah, right, okay, well put, he says. But he keeps on asking him more questions. But Reverend Sir, what is the characteristic mark of reasoning? And what of wisdom? Nagasena's reply, reasoning, O king, always has comprehension as its mark. But wisdom has the characteristic of cutting off the unwanted thoughts in the mind. And cutting off the fetters, by destroying the fetters, can only be done by those, the purification by knowledge and vision and conformity knowledge, path and fruits. But sir, how is comprehension the characteristic of reasoning and the cutting off of that of wisdom? Give me an illustration. And then he says, O king, do you remember the Barley Reapers? That means the people that are cutting down the barley fields or the rice fields, with a big sieve or, a sickle. Yes, Venerable Sir, I remember them. How do they reap barley, O king? And the king was like, well, with the left hand, they grasp the barley into a bunch, and taking the sickle into the right hand, they cut it off with that. So Nagasena replies, just so, king, does the wise disciple by this reasoning grasp the defilements of the mind, and by the penetrating wisdom cultivated through concentration and mindfulness, he cuts them off. In this way is it that comprehension is the characteristic mark of reasoning, but cutting off is that of wisdom. And again, the king says, well put, Venerable Nagasena. Then the king asks another question. But Nagasena, how does he who orders his life aright realize Nibbana? And then the Nagasena replies, he who orders his life aright grasps the truth, understands the origin and development of all things. And he perceives, whether in the beginning, the middle, or the end, anything, there's nothing worthy to be called I, me, or mine. And then he gives this simile. As a man, if a thick iron rod had been heated the whole day and were all glowing and scorching red hot, that man would find no spot on that iron bar, whether in the beginning, middle, or end, to grasp a hold of it, because he would get burned. Just so, O king, a noble discerner of the truths perceives not anything, the five aggregates in the conditioned world, to be fit to be relied upon as lasting satisfaction or a source of happiness. Thus, the disillusionment, discontentment arises in his mind, and he becomes dispassionate and weary of being born over and over again at the whims of karma. And he develops that, that desire to be rid of all those defects of ignorance and the fetters, and to experience the end of craving, peace, the cool Nibbana. The person reflects that way. And while he's thus reflecting that way, the mind leaps forward into that state which there is no becoming, and he finds peace, and he rejoices at the thought, at last I have found the refuge, and he strives with might and main along that path, searches it out, accustoms himself thoroughly to it. To that end does he make firm his determination to reach the end of suffering. Again and again he does so until finally he reaches the highest fruit of arahantship. And then he asked the king, the king asked Nagasena again, Nagasena, does there exist the spot either in the east, south, north, or west, either above or below or on the horizon where Nibbana exists or is stored up? And Nagasena says, no, O king, there is no spot like that where Nibbana is stored up. Nibbana just is, and he who orders his life aright will by carefully thinking and meditation realize Nibbana. Just as a fire exists, and yet there is no place where the fire is stored up. But when a man rubs two sticks together, the fire comes out. Just so, O king, Nibbana exists, though there is no spot where Nibbana is stored up. Then he says, okay, let it be granted there is no place where Nibbana exists or is stored up. But is there any place on which a man may stand and ordering his life aright, realize Nibbana? And he says, yes, O king, there is such a place. And that is, standing on the Noble Eightfold Path, the practice of virtue, the sila, samadhi, and panya, or moral conduct, mental concentration or calmness, and wisdom. And whether you are living in Greece or in China or in Benares or in Kashmir, I'll add New York or Los Angeles to that, or on a mountaintop or in a cave, wherever that person may be, the man who orders the life aright according to the Noble Eightfold Path will realize Nibbana. Then one other question he has. Nagasena tells the king, the king asked Nagasena, this Nibbana you speak about, can it be made clear by metaphor or explanation, its form or figure or duration or size? Nibbana, O king, has nothing similar to it. By no reason, metaphor, or explanation can its size, form, duration, or measure be made clear. Suppose, O king, someone was to ask you, how much water is there in the ocean? And how many creatures are there that dwell therein in the ocean? Could you give that person a reply, O king? The king says, certainly not, venerable sir. It would be impossible to ever calculate that, how many gallons or the size is in the ocean. The ocean is so vast. Just so, O king, it is impossible to tell the form, size, duration, and measure of Nibbana, although it is a condition that exists. And even if one of magical powers were able to count the volume of water and the creatures in the vast ocean, even he could not tell the form, size, duration, or measure of Nibbana. Okay, I'm just going to conclude this by the qualities of Nibbana. The king asked the qualities of Nibbana. Oh, and the answer is, O king, there is one quality of the lotus which is inherent in Nibbana. As a lotus flower is untarnished by the water, so is Nibbana untarnished by any evil dispositions, or the 10 fetters untarnished. There are two qualities of water which are inherent in Nibbana. As water is cool and assuages heat, so also Nibbana is cool and cools down the fever arising from evil dispositions, the fever of greed, hatred, and delusion. Secondly, as water allays the thirst of men and beasts when they are exhausted, so too does Nibbana allay the thirst of craving after lusts in the 6 sense objects, the craving after future life, the craving after worldly prosperity. This is the second quality of water inherent in Nibbana. These 3 qualities of medicine, O king, are inherent in Nibbana. As medicine is the refuge of beings tormented by disease, so is Nibbana the refuge of beings tormented with the poison of greed, hatred, and delusion. It puts an end to griefs and sorrow. And again, as medicine is an ambrosia, so also is Nibbana. There are 4 qualities of the ocean inherent in Nibbana. As the ocean does not tolerate dead corpses, but tosses them up on the shore, so too Nibbana does not tolerate any evil dispositions. And as the ocean, mighty and boundless, does not fill up with all the rivers that flow into it, so also is Nibbana mighty and boundless, and fills not up with all the beings who attain or realize Nibbana for themselves. Nibbana doesn't get crowded or fill up. As the ocean is the abode of great creatures, so is Nibbana the abode of great persons, the arahants. As the ocean is full of many precious jewels and gems, so is Nibbana full of the gems of pure knowledge and emancipation. So I'm just going to finish with these. Then there's 3 qualities of red sandalwood inherent in Nibbana. It's hard to obtain. It is unequaled in its fragrance. It is praised by all the wise persons. There are these 10 qualities of space inherent in Nibbana. Nibbana is not born, nor grows old, nor dies, nor passes away. It has no rebirth. It is unconquerable. Thieves cannot carry it away. It is not attached to anything. It's the sphere in which arahants move. Nothing can obstruct it, and it is infinite. And just one last poem to conclude this. Happy is solitude, who is glad at heart, who hath learned the Dhamma, and doth the vision see. Happy is that benignity or loving kindness towards the world, which on no creature works harm. Happy the freedom from all lust and attachment. He who doth crush the great I am conceit, this happiness supreme, this happiness by happiness is one. Unending happiness is this alone. The threefold wisdom hath he made his own. This even is the happiest, is the happiness supreme, even here and now. Okay, friends, so that's the end of the reading in that little book. And again, there's other suttas there too, but I encourage you to get the book and read them if you like. So now, based on any of that, we'll see if there's any questions. If there's any questions written down over the chat. This is a question about, I guess you all can read it anyway. King Melinda, yeah, some people regard him as being a general, maybe with Alexander's army, who probably stopped in Pakistan. And did the Buddhist teachings have some impact on Alexander and his generals, who also influenced the kings? Now, I don't know, I can't answer that, but I'm sure it probably did, because, with all the trade going on and all the, the armies going back and forth, to India, they took back so many things, both the plunder from the riches and so on, but also the teachings that they no doubt heard, like this king wanting to question this Nagasena. Is Nibbana the state of peace and equanimity within our own mind? Yes, basically, it's a state could say that's beyond mind. It's beyond the conditioned mind. So it's beyond the clinging to feeling, perception, volition, and even consciousness. But that state of, let's say, pure awareness, exists concurrently with the five aggregates. So that, like the five aggregates, the Nibbana with the five aggregates still remaining. So, that's still, it's the unconditioned mind. So to say it's within our mind, of course, the peace and equanimity can come before actually gaining Nibbana. You can gain, many different levels of inner peace and equanimity by practicing jhanas. And by, even that, like you practice up to the third and fourth jhana, you experience that purified mindfulness and equanimity. But that doesn't mean you've attained enlightenment, and that state will disappear when you come out of the meditation. But ultimately, when as we read in the sutta, when one realizes that state of equanimity, then that or arahantship, the peace and equanimity will stay permanently there, even in the spite of what things might be going on around you. Any last questions? Anybody want to write down a last question? So if not, well, we can take a few minutes break to use the restroom and take a drink of water. And then for those who want to come back to do a few stretches and then have a meditation, then if you want to write a question down, even, you know, before we start the yoga exercise, I'll see if any last question has been written down. Okay, so go ahead and take a few minutes break. We'll come back. Okay, so let's see if there's any further questions. This question, are arhants aware of the sleeping mind? Well, I am not an arahant, so I cannot answer that question without any authoritative, knowledge. But you can become aware of the, like the Buddha. He didn't really sleep like an ordinary person, but he took rest. That means he laid down for a couple of hours at night in what is called the Buddha's reclining posture, laying on the right side with his head on one hand and his legs on top of each other. And he maintained awareness. It was like a third dimension state in which the ego mind is like being in the body. It feels like it's being asleep, but awareness, a kind of awareness, is still there. So it's not like an ordinary person who has dreams and toss and turn and so on. But so it's like a middle ground state. It's not the sleeping, and it's not I mean ordinary sleeping, and it's not awake. It's like being awake and asleep together at the same time. That's probably about the best way you might, maybe that it could be described, because it's similar to what you experience in meditation. Because even when you're meditating, it's sometimes when you reach very deep levels of awareness, when the thinking and all that stops and subsides, and the body is perfectly still, you can reach a similar state. Okay, then we'll go ahead and begin our few stretching exercises for those who are listening in from over in Europe or other places where it's very late in the evening. Then you can take your rest, and we'll see you again. And otherwise, go ahead and stand up, and then we'll do a few stretches and then have our meditation. So just stand straight. Feel your feet pressing the floor. Gently close the eyes. Feel the standing body. Relax the shoulders. Feel the weight of the arms and hands hanging at the sides. Then begin some deep, slow breathing. It'll take at least 3 seconds to gradually expand the abdomen, rib cage, and upper chest. Hold the air in the lungs for 2 or 3 seconds if you can, then slowly breathe out, feeling all the contracting sensations of the out breath. On the next in-breath, raise the arms over the head, interlock the fingers, turn the palms up, straighten the arms, stretch your head back to look at the back of your hands, and stretch upwards all at the same time. On the out breath, turn the hands down and touch the top of your head. And again, in breath, palms up, straighten the arms, stretch the head back, stretch up, feel sensations. Out breath, touch the top of the head. Once more, in breath. And hold that upward stretch longer, arch the lower back a little bit. Now release the fingers. On the out breath, arms back to the sides. Feel those sensations. And relax. Gently close the eyes. Just mentally feel that outline of the standing body. And those sensations, pulsations inside, generated by the exercise and breathing. Just letting go of your thoughts. Just keep remembering standing, standing, the here and now of the body. Stand. On the next in-breath, push up on the toes while raising the arms over the head, facing the palms toward each other, and stretch up. The out-breath, come back down, arms, hands to the side, heels back to the floor. Use the breath to help lift up the body, like blowing up a helium balloon with the in-breath. Body raises up on the toes. Stretch. Out. Once more, in. Out. Relax. Gently close the eyes. Start to feel the increased subtle sensations, pulsations due to the activated cells of the body charged up with oxygen and life force. Or if you can't feel that, feel where the clothing touches the skin of the body. If there's any aches or pains. It's present moment awareness grounded in the body. Next, we'll do side bending using both arms at the same time. In breath, raise both arms up. Keep the fingers and arms straight close to your head. Keep the hands about 6 inches apart. On the out breath, bend over your right side as far as you comfortably can, keeping the arms parallel to each other. Feel the stretch in the side. In breath, lift up. And the out breath, the other side. In breath, up. In to the right, out breath. In. Out. In. Once more to each side, out breath. In the out breath, lower both arms. Feel the sensations, relax. Feel the feet pressing the floor. The arms and hands at the side. Clothing touching the skin on different places. The head balanced on top. Okay, the last exercise, we'll do the head turning from right to left. On the next in-breath, turn your head to the right as far as you comfortably can. Try to look over the right shoulder. focus the eyes on something in that direction. On the out breath, turn 180 degrees back to the left. Look over the left shoulder. In breath back to the right. Just concentrate into the neck vertebrae. Out breath left. Once more, in breath to the right. Out breath left. And the next in breath, let the head stop in the middle. Just relax. You just feel the whole body vibrating, pulsating. Okay, now go ahead and come back to your seat. Okay, I'm going to switch off the video as we normally do for the meditation. So just try to sit straight, keeping the head and spine in a straight line. Just gently close the eyes. I'm going to spend a few minutes just mentally feeling the body, try to get the attention grounded in the body. So just feel the spot below where the buttocks and feet are pressing the seat. Just feel that solid earth element vibration. 100 pounds or more of flesh and bones pressing onto the seat. Just feel the different sensations, each buttock, each foot. How the knees are bent. Just bring the attention to the present moment. Then feel your hands and fingers touching. See if you can notice, feel the outline of your thumbs or fingers. Where they touch together or where they touch your legs. Again, that's the earth vibration. The contact giving rise to sensations, feelings, perceptions. Just knowing that your hands touching is a mental perception based on memory. Then relax the shoulders. You can feel the weight of the upper arms hanging from the shoulders. Feel where the clothing touches the skin of your shoulders, or arms, or chest. Just keep reminding yourself, just the body, the body. And now feel the head balanced on top of the neck. Try to keep the chin level, parallel with the floor. Try to find the center of gravity of the head and spine over the hips. Kind of that tipping point where the body could either tip backwards or forwards. Try to hold that, maintain that feeling in the mind's eye. And imagine that you're balancing a stack of books on top of the head so that you remain sitting straight. If you slouch, the books would fall off. You lose your present moment awareness. And then just feel some sensations on your face and head. And just feel the skin stretched over your face, chin, cheeks, forehead, the nose. Feel those little subtle sensations or prickling sensations. And briefly kind of just feel the lips touching together. Contact of the upper lip to the lower lip, producing sensation. Maybe they're dry or they're moist. It's just a feeling. And try to feel the sensations of your teeth, the tongue, or the gums in the mouth. Feel that sensation in the top of the throat. You might feel like you're going to cough or swallow. Now feel the eyes resting in the sockets and the eyelids stretched over the eyeball. Try to feel the subtle eye movement. You might notice some color, light, or patterns behind the eyes. Or just a black darkness. And from that point behind the eyes, you just try to feel the outline of the sitting body, that general sense of the feet and the buttocks underneath, the hands and arms at the sides, the chest in the middle. And the head balanced on top. It's not in great detail, just the general sense, all those sensations feeding in from those different parts, feet, hands, arms, head, chest, to give rise to all those sensations are a mosaic that then we call the body. Body is not one thing, it's just a collection of different parts, different sensations that we then call a body. It's perception. Try not to cling to it as I or me or mine, just, it's a body. There's 7 billion bodies on this earth. It's just another body. Just feel the different sensations. Okay, now begin taking some deep, slow breaths. Try to get more grounded in the body, develop some more concentration. Try to do some deep, slow breathing, holding in the breath after breathing in for a few seconds to feel that pause. Just breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, sitting here and now. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, sitting here and now. And breathing in a long breath, knowing that you're breathing in a long breath. You feel the pause. And breathing out a long breath, knowing that you're breathing out a long breath. And feeling the whole breath body, breathing in. Beginning, the middle, and end of the in-breath and the pause. And feeling the whole breath body, breathing out. Means all the contractions of the abdomen, rib cage, and chest. And the brief pause. And the next in-breath. Breathing in, feeling the whole body, physical body. And breathing out, feeling the whole physical body. Try to get that sense of feeling the whole breath body within this larger, the whole physical body. Just like watching a sport match, you can be aware of the whole team, basketball team, but you can see an individual player also at the same time. So like that, we can feel the whole breath body occurring within the larger body. Just try to continue that deep, slow breathing if you can, or if you get tired of it, you can let go of the deep breathing. Let the breathing return to its uncontrolled rhythm, but continue to feel it. continue to keep the attention centered there in the center of the body. To feel the subtler movements of expanding and contracting. Feel where the clothing rubs against the skin of the belly, or rib cage, or chest. Use that as a kind of a concentration point. And feeling the shorter breaths, breathing in. Feeling the shorter breaths, breathing out. With each out breath, just allowing the body and mind to relax more and more into the present moment. Breathing in, tranquilizing the whole body and mind. One trains oneself. Breathing out, tranquilizing the whole body and mind. One trains oneself. And just letting go of any tension in the body and mind. Especially on the out breath, just letting go of any physical tension, any mental tension. That's how you tranquilize the body and mind. You have to be aware of the tension. Let go of them. Body and mind naturally tranquilizes. You maintain that concentration. If you still have too many thoughts, you can try counting the breaths on your own from 1 to 10. Or you simply maintain that understanding of just breathing in, sitting, breathing out, sitting, just tuning in to the present moment of the sitting, breathing body. Just understanding that on this body are the sense organs of eyes, ears, nose, tongue, skin, even the mind sense. And what you feel or hear, those are all just contacts. Because you have the senses, contacts are constantly occurring. Especially in the body, so many sensations can be felt. Producing the feeling. Could be some unpleasant feelings or pleasant feelings. Feeling of being peaceful is a pleasant feeling. Feeling of being hot or too much warm, unpleasant feeling. You can notice that in the mind. There's an ache or pain. Breathing in, sitting. Breathing out, sitting. All these contacts are occurring by themselves. Just try to notice those factors of the dependent origination. Mind and body is here. The body is here, it has the sense organs on it. Because of the contacts, the consciousness is arising, the five aggregates, form, feeling, perception, volition, consciousness. Just even reflect on that in a discursive way. Be alert for thoughts trying to take you away. Get caught up in thinking, recognize it as thinking. Or confusion, whatever mental state it might be. It's just a mental bubble. It's not I, me, or mine. Stay grounded in the body. Just opening up to the flow of impermanent. So many different body sensations coming and going. Sensations from your feet to buttocks or hands, or chest or head. Whatever predominates in the mind at any moment, just be able to recognize it. This is form, this is feeling, this is perception, this is volition, urges, this is consciousness, ideas of I, me, or mine. Especially be alert to how quickly certain sensations, perceptions, sounds or thoughts arise and vanish very quickly. They arise, last 1 or 2 seconds and vanish, followed by something else. Or even 5 or 10 different sensations arising and vanishing in the space of a second. Just try to cultivate detached, onlooking awareness to this body-mind process. Just understanding there is this body and mind, these sense objects. Just for the sake of cultivating mindfulness and knowledge, not for clinging to, worrying about. Just understanding how this body was produced because of the mother and father, the past karma. This body has come to be. Having to feed this body oatmeal, rice, other things. Having to keep it scrubbed and clean, and tend to so many problems. And this mind with so many various memories and thoughts or emotions. This body and mind, this whole lifetime creating more karma, the process of becoming. Are you increasing the process of becoming or decreasing the process of becoming? It's occurring right now, this very moment within your body and mind. It's not some theory. Just observe it. From time to time, if the mind is sluggish or too many thoughts, come back and do some deep, slow breathing to help slow down the thoughts, to get re-grounded, centered in the body. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, sitting here and now. Just opening up to the flow of impermanence. Just let the speed of perception arising and vanishing, different sensations, thoughts, sound. Open up to that, let that momentum build up. Speed without clinging. There's no time to hold on to any particular thought, feeling, sensation. There's always something else you can notice. Breathing in, experiencing dispassion. Breathing out, feeling that detachment. Breathing in, allowing the ego consciousness to fade away. Breathing out, experiencing fading away of I consciousness. The body and mind process is there, but nobody that owns it. It's powered by the force of the past karma conditioning. Just lay down the burden of clinging to form, feeling, perception, volition, consciousness. Feel that subtle vibration of awareness underneath that flow of impermanence. Sabbi sankhara anicchati. Sabbi sankhara dukkati. Sabbi dhamma anattati. Yada panyaya pasati atanibindati dukhi esamaggo visuddhya. All conditioned things, the five aggregates of this body, mind, and world are impermanent. They arise only to pass away. And all impermanent things, if clung to with ignorance, bring stress and suffering. And all the conditioned dhammas, as well as the unconditioned dhamma, even Nibbana, is without any owner or controller. It's not self. When one understands these three characteristics with the eye of wisdom, one becomes disenchanted with suffering. This is the path to purity, to freedom. And thus spoke the Buddha. Friends, to finish the meditation, we'll spend a few minutes doing some deep breathing and sending out thoughts of metta vibrations toward ourselves and all other beings. So again, try to take some deep, slow breaths. And after breathing in, hold the air in the lungs several seconds. And feel the relaxing contractions of the out breath. And with the in breath, as you're holding in the breath, just to feel that oxygenated blood going out through the whole body, mind, nervous system, driving out anxiety, worry, tension, fear. On the out breath, feel that relaxation of body and mind. And with each in breath, just imagine that breathing in slowly, holding the breath. Feel that as sending metta to your own body, mind, nervous system. Especially when you're holding in the breath, feel those subtle vibrations. And feel the relaxation, that kind of healing power on the out breath. And again, as you're breathing in, just feeling that metta, sending that metta to yourself, holding in the breath. And on the out breath, imagining sending out those metta thoughts to all other beings, or to your family members, friends, especially if you know somebody that's sick, and gradually extending that with each out breath. Extending that radiation, vibrations further afield. And breathing in, may I be well, peaceful, and wise. And breathing out, may all beings be well, peaceful, and wise. Breathing in, may I be free from pains and sufferings self-created by the mind. On the out breath, may all beings be free from pains and suffering self-created by their mind. Breathing in, may I have the patience, strength, mindfulness, and wisdom to meet and overcome all difficulties in life. On the out breath, may all beings have the patience, strength, mindfulness, and wisdom to meet and overcome all difficulties in life. Breathing in, may I be able to continue to develop my practice of the Dhamma and meditation to meet and overcome all suffering. On the out breath, may all beings be able to hear the Dhamma and practice meditation to free their minds from suffering. May all beings be well, peaceful, and wise. Just like a mantra reverberating throughout space. May all beings be well, peaceful, and wise. May all beings be well, peaceful, and wise. So may that sound of the gong be the sound of the wisdom bell that drives out the darkness of delusions from the mind. So for those who like, you can join in chanting the word sadhu 3 times slowly on the out breath. So take a deep breath, focus on what you're going to do, hold the breath in a couple of seconds, and a long out breath, chanting the sadhu. So breathe in. Sadhu. 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 So friends, actually just take one more deep breath. Place your hands at the edge of the knees, and as you breathe in, stretch your head back and pull the hands against the knees, arch your lower spine. And lift the head up, and on an out breath, press the chin to the top of the chest to stretch the neck vertebrae. On the in breath, just lift the chin up level to the floor. Put a smile. On the out breath, relax. Okay, friends. So this brings our evening session to an end, and I'm glad you could all participate, and we'll see you again on Sunday or next week. Again, try to think of some questions you might like to ask on Sunday, because I won't be giving such too long of a Dhamma talk, but I'm going to give more time to answer people's questions. So, don't forget, mindfulness a day keeps dukkha away.